You've been charged with a crime and you think it's no big deal. The prosecutor is the prosecutor is just doing his or her job. But nothing can prepare you for the ensuing nightmare, especially when the accuser is of the opposite sex. We're talking about life deflating consequences such as job loss, college expulsions, loan denials, you name it, all the while being pariahed by society with public shaming, social media trials, distrust, and scorn. What is also baffling is the accuser most times suffer no measurable repercussions. Now, there are obvious, unfortunate cases where men beat the system by technicalities in the law, and there are also women out there who don't report actual assaults due to fear and other reasons. And obviously, both of these are very troublesome, deeply troubling, and grossly unfair. But neither justifies in any way the consequences faced by the falsely accused in many a case. Hi, and a hearty welcome to everyone tuning in to today's podcast. We do appreciate you taking the time to do so. And for the next 30 to 45 minutes or so, we engage our amazing guest, Michael Thompson, on his critical work of advocating and supporting the falsely accused. My name is Dipchand Ramcharitar, Outreach and Development Coordinator at Voice of Men 360. Voice of Men 360 is a non-profit organization based in London, Ontario, Canada, primarily focused on uplifting and advocating for men and boys, though we do reach out to other demographics as best we can. Voice of Men 360 is part of International Men's Day, founded more than 20 years ago and providing similar services for men and boys in over 90 countries. This is Open Up. It's our 192nd episode. It's a weekly podcast produced and hosted by Voice of Men 360, where we engage with influential leaders and critical thinkers to address key issues with the intent to positively impact society with an emphasis on supporting men and boys. Now, before we go on, I would just like to run through our disclaimer. We would like to remind you that Voice of Men 360's mission is always delivered with good faith towards peaceful harmony. The views and opinions expressed in today's episode are those of our speakers and do not necessarily represent Voice of Men 360. Our organization engages in discussion forums to offer inspiration and create awareness of the issues of men who wish to overcome their life challenges. We are not providing medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require that type of assistance, we recommend you contact a medical professional immediately. If you have any questions or concerns about today's episode or any Voice of Men 360 content, please email us at info@voiceofmen360.org. And now it's with great pleasure I take in welcoming our esteemed guest, Michael Thompson, founder of Falsely Accused Network and Paternity Fraud UK. Welcome to the show, Michael. It's a pleasure having you here.
Oh, thank you. Good afternoon.
Well, first of all, as you introduce yourself, let's dive right in. First of all, what prompted you to get involved in this noble cause? And the second part of that is, what type of support services do you offer individuals who have been falsely accused?
So, why I started this is that I was myself falsely accused of domestic abuse, and I realised that there was very little support out there for men who were going through this. There was some organisations, there still are some other ones around at the moment, but I didn't think that what they offered was good enough. So I decided myself I thought, if no one else is set up an organisation, I'll do it, and I'll make it as good as I can. And I take great pride in what I do. I take great pride in supporting other men who have been falsely accused of domestic abuse. I take great pride in looking after them and making sure they get through the worst time of their life.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, it's any like as far as I can tell, both here in North America and across the pond in the UK
Mm-hmm.
and other Western culture, especially Western civilizations,
Mm-hmm.
there seem to be, comparatively speaking, when you come to the opposite gender, a severe lack of support services for men.
That's
Um,
correct.
Men are generally considered disposable. Nobody seems to care that much about their faith rather. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're left to fight, but that's what men have been doing from the dawn of civilization. The back is against the wall, and you put your best foot forward, and stem the tide as best you can. Keep your chin up. Of
Yeah,
course, it doesn't help when you have, as I mentioned earlier, like all this public shaming. You have social media trials and everything going on that's against you. It takes a severe toll on you, your family, and it's
yes,
grossly unfair. So thank you for the important work that you're doing. Can you tell us a bit about the process for evaluating cases and determining which ones to support?
absolutely. Yeah, sure. So we operate a national helpline that covers England and Wales. So
Right.
people can get in contact with us via an internet inquiry, direct to our website or through TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I then arrange a phone call. It's really important that I actually speak to the person, because an email really doesn't cover everything. So we have
Right.
a one-to-one conversation. It's private and confidential. Nothing goes anywhere between me and the man who's been falsely accused. I then listen to the story of what's going on, and
Okay.
unfortunately, they're so similar now. They're so similar. I've done so many. It's a very very similar thing. And then I assess in three areas what that man needs. So the first and our most obvious one, the most urgent one, is actually legal assistance. So if the man is in need of a criminal lawyer, I will then link them up with a firm of criminal lawyers that we know who specialise in false allegations of domestic abuse. If it is a family law case, which
Right.
most of them will be, then I've got connections where I've got two fantastic solicitors that I know, one based in London and one based in Liverpool, who we can connect men up with if they need to go to family court. Now, unfortunately, it's very difficult to get legal aid for family law in England and Wales. So, unfortunately, a lot of men cannot afford a solicitor.
Sorry, can I interrupt you for a second with this question? So when
Hmm.
you say they cannot get family aid, you're talking about men only, like women has that support.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you an example, Dipchand. A woman only has to claim she's been domestically abused, and the government will pay for a free solicitor in the family court. However, a man, in which nearly every man that I speak to on the helpline is a domestic abuse victim themselves, it is extremely difficult for a man to get legal aid in the family court. And the price of a solicitor privately is very, very expensive. I mean, the solicitors that I know do a fantastic job, but they do come at a price. So we then look at other options of getting the man legal assistance in family court. So we know, like, I'm not sure whether these are known in Canada, but we have what's called Mackenzie Friends, and they're people that can assist people in family court, but they can't speak on your behalf. But they're much cheaper than a solicitor.
Right.
So that is another option where most people can afford a Mackenzie friend. If people can't afford a Mackenzie friend, then we can look after them within the group. We also have connect men with mental health professionals who have experience in supporting men who have been through family court or false allegations or relationship breakdown. And we also then have a private support group. It's very, very private. It's difficult to get in, and we have regular meetings with the guys to help them through what's going on.
Wow, that's certainly a very intricate and necessary support system given the lack of government
Mm-hmm.
support.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's fantastic. Now, does your work involve interactions with the law, like with prosecutors, etc.? And is
Yeah.
that generally amicable and mutually beneficial?
No, we have no direct dealings with the police at all.
Okay.
None whatsoever. So again, if a guy needs help in a criminal case, we'll connect them up with a specialist firm of solicitors that we know. But no, we don't directly get involved with the police.
Okay. Now, what are some of the biggest challenges your organization faces in supporting the falsely accused, and how do you overcome them?
We have a few challenges. Funding's a difficult one because we're not a charity. So and even if we were a charity, we'd never get funded from the government anyway. So we have to raise all our own funds. There's a how do I put this? Unfortunately, a lot of guys, when they've been falsely accused, feel very deeply ashamed and embarrassed, and there's a stigma, and it can be difficult for some men to come forward. But I hope, as we continue our operation, we see that breaking down now, and men are more openly talking about the fact that they've been falsely accused.
Okay.
So they're the two biggest challenges, really, is funding and the stigma that the men and the isolation the men go through once they've been falsely accused.
Oh, okay. Let's move on to the next question. From our previous conversation that we had,
Mm-hmm.
I learned that most of your clients are men.
Yeah.
That being the case, how do you address concerns out there about downplaying the severity of crimes committed against women and other vulnerable groups?
When when a man rings up, we have to take what we've been told on a good faith basis.
Right.
So if, however, if there was indicators there that the person was that the man was lying or inconsistencies in the story, and it's not often this happens, it's very rare it happens. But if it
Okay.
does, I would still link that man up with a legal professional, but I wouldn't put them in the group.
Right,
I mean,
because every one of us, I'm sorry, I just wanted to
okay,
interject and say every one of us should be entitled to representation.
absolutely,
Sorry to
absolutely.
interrupt.
So there is that, but the problem is now going back to what you said about downplaying, etc. There's so many instances of false allegations now. It is the false accusers that are causing this problem. The amount of false allegations out there, they're the ones that are causing this problem and that actually harm the genuine victims the most.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah,
And obviously, the other thing too is, I guess if you realize that there are no checks and balances ahead, no repercussions for you,
yeah,
and you have maybe monetary incentive or maybe a shaming of your own, you're involved with an individual and it results in some sort of dishonor to the family or something like that. I
yeah.
think in a way it sort of incentivizes you, to seek obvious unfair justification for something that didn't happen so that you can feel better about your situation.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's unfortunate, but it's life.
it's true, and it's a very common question I get asked on the helpline: is a man could be falsely accused, goes through the police, and the police might say, right, no further action, there's not enough evidence. And one of the a common phone call I'll get is, well, Mike, can I get my ex partner prosecuted for this?
Yeah.
So I have to explain to them that in England and Wales, there's two charges available for false allegations. One is called wasting police time,
Right.
and the other is perverting the course of justice. Wasting police time is a summary offence, which will only be heard in the magistrate. Perverting the course of justice is quite serious and can go to the Crown Court. Now, the difficulty is actually getting enough evidence to prove that she was lying. And
Right.
it's very, very rare that a false accuser in England and Wales actually gets charged and receives a criminal penalty for false allegations, and it's sickening, really.
Yeah, because I think one of the things that would obviously help, on I'm sure there are many circumstances where this isn't even possible, is to have video evidence. And
Mm,
not everybody's always around with the, ready to have to be recording what's going on. They may not think it necessary to begin
yeah.
with, but that would certainly help. You know, what notable successes have your organization achieved in supporting the falsely accused? And can you elaborate a bit on the most significant one?
We have we've had some very good successes. Now, this might sound quite minor, but it isn't. And what we do is encourage men to seek what's called pre-charge representation. So when a man has been arrested, we say to them, please hire a solicitor now, start your
Right.
defence now, so you don't get charged. And the firm that we know do such a great job. I think their success rate is about 90%. So every time we get a guy that's been no further actioned, that to us is a great success. But also, on many occasions when guys have gone to family court and they've got the kids back, or the judges have dismissed the false allegations, we've had so many. We've had so many. So there's nothing noticeable because to me everyone's a victory.
That's excellent. Very good work. Now, do you
Mhm.
collaborate with other organization or advocacy groups to support the falsely accused? And if so, how has that worked out so far?
Yeah, so I mean, we will work with anybody who supports men who've been falsely accused. So I'm in contact with other organisations at a higher level, so we do speak. Um, and there are attempts to try and unite a lot of groups in the United Kingdom, and I think that's something we need to continue to do. I think there's lots of little groups out there, and I think if we were to work together at a higher level, um, which there is attempts to do that at the moment already, um, that would be even better for men. So I'm quite
Absolutely.
keen for that to develop that.
Yeah, absolutely. Given what you're up against, you need all the help you can get. So, as much as possible, all the people out there who can support you, whether it's public or
Yeah,
groups, organizations, whatever, that would be most welcome. You
yeah.
know. Now, I think one of the main issues we have is a lack of awareness or
Hmm.
a presumption of guilt before trial,
Hmm.
and, and that severely hampers and affects mentally. You mentioned mental health as well.
Hmm.
Mentally, the individual, and takes a severe toll on their life. So, what do you think about prioritizing education and awareness to bring attention and understanding to the horror show that is false accusations? And how do you work to promote these efforts?
Yes, we do. This is one of the strands of what we do is to raise awareness of false allegations. Certainly, we encourage men to protect themselves at all time. To do use technology to help them, which could be like the Ring doorbells, body cameras, recording equipment on phones. I think generally speaking, I think since the Johnny Depp case,
Right.
Men are much more aware, which is fantastic. We all saw what Amber Heard did to Johnny Depp, and we continue to raise awareness. And the mental health side of it, I mean, I must be at least once, two, three times a week having to talk to men and trying to convince them not to kill themselves. And
Yeah.
the mental health impact is huge on the falsely accused. It's huge.
Yeah, it's same across the pond here because
Mm.
it takes a severe toll, and men are more likely to commit suicide if they see no way out, even though
Hmm.
they're innocent. But if everything goes against them and they see no way they can deal with this, suicide unfortunately seems to be something that they would turn to, and we need to have as much as possible support systems out there to
Yeah.
help them. Now, speaking of which, do you think there are any specific policy changes or reforms that you believe would reduce the incidence of false accusations or improve support for those affected?
Well, policy changes, I think, what we've identified in the family court in England and Wales is that a big reason why false allegations have increased in the last sort of 12, 15 years is the removal of legal aid, except for domestic abuse cases, and that is actually been proven. That's what's caused the spike of false allegations in family court.
Right.
So we think that the legal aid system itself in the family court needs to be revisited.
Okay.
But also we have or we did have, there was what's called a believe the victim policy. So the police in the United Kingdom were encouraged to believe the victim, not investigate the claims and impartially and try to get to the truth. And that needs to be reversed as well. And as for support, we need a lot of money pouring into support services for men with on the mental health side, and that needs to come from the government, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that too. Now, on a related front, what do you think about areas such as the family courts, judgments, and paternity fraud?
Um, Paternity fraud is, just for anybody who's watching this, just so I'll explain what it is. It's where a woman will say that person A is the biological father of a child when she knows it's not, it's person B. And that happened to me. My wife became pregnant, told me I was the father, and I found out 2 years later, after the boy was born, that I wasn't his biological father. Paternity fraud is a huge taboo subject, massive taboo subject, yet it's surprisingly quite common. We reckon up to 10% of children in the United Kingdom have been told that person A is the father, when in fact it's not, it's person B. The family court really, as it is, doesn't really seem to care about paternity fraud. Um, and we want to see changes in the law where it would be a specific criminal offence of paternity fraud, because the damage it does is incalculable.
Right. Now, do you see or do you think it's a good idea to make DNA testing mandatory at birth?
Yes, I think the technology exists. I think paternity testing came commercially available in the mid 1990s. The cost of a test in the United Kingdom is about £99. It's not
Right.
much. I don't know what that is into Canadian dollars, but it's about £99 in the United Kingdom. Probably can get a little bit cheaper. Depends where you shop around. There is no reason now in the modern era why it can't be that a man needs to have a DNA test to prove he's the father of a child before he can get onto the birth certificate. That benefits the child. Let's start with the child at the middle of this.
Right.
That benefits the child knowing that the man listed on the birth certificate is his or her actual biological father. And then it benefits us men as well. Then we know that we're not raising another man's child. Everybody wins, and
Absolutely.
everybody wins. And I can't understand any resistance towards this
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. Well, to add to that, I don't know if you were about to mention this. To add to that, there are cases where the child has to undergo some sort of surgery or something and needs some tissue or something from the dad. And only at that time it is found out that the
Yeah,
person supposedly his dad isn't.
yeah,
His dad isn't. And that's a critical issue because that child can be facing life-threatening situations. And so that's also important. Now, one of the counter arguments we get is that the woman would feel that you don't trust her and feels offended by you asking. But compare that to what actually happens out there and see
mm,
if that is any sort of justification for not wanting to have the test mandatory. I believe in France it is illegal
yeah.
to have DNA testing unless it's sanctioned by the mother. Now, it seems to me that if you know that child is you deceive the father of the home into thinking that child is his, it stands to reason to me that you will not sanction
Exactly.
DNA tests. So that's a major issue. I know I've been listening to some or watching rather some YouTube broadcasts, and
Mm-hmm.
there was one in particular that stood out where the host was interviewing an employee of a lab where they do DNA testing, and the guest um, said that he actually had to leave the job because in that particular lab, and I'm not sure if that extends across the board, but he said 30 something percent of the DNA samples proved that it wasn't the father that it was thought to be. And he said what is even worse, more disheartening, is that he has to spend time on the phone trying to counsel not only the father of the home, but the actual kids themselves sometimes. He said
Yeah,
he left the job, he quit the job because it was too distressing to know what's out there and what some of us have to face in life, and there are, as far as I understand, there are no consequences to the mother, who is the only one, as far as I can tell, who would 100% know who is the father of that child. And so,
absolutely.
that's a nightmare as far
Well,
as
the mother knows for certainty the child's hers.
right.
Why can't men know for certain if the child's ours?
Yeah.
The argument, and I've had this argument with feminists, is that if it was mandatory, that means everybody has to do it. So we're not
Right.
picking on anybody.
Right.
We're saying it's everyone,
Yes.
and it would stop a lot of heartache. It would ensure that any child knows right from the beginning who their father is, and any man knows if that child's theirs or not. The only person that would, or the only type of person that would object to this, in my opinion, is someone with something to hide.
Exactly. Exactly. And again, this is the only true way that you can know whether you're the father of that child. Um,
Yes.
and that is 100%, as far as I understand, it's 100% correct
Hmm.
to make that determination. So
Hmm.
that, I think, is something that advocacy groups should fight to get done. It's
Absolutely.
very important that we all work towards achieving that goal. It's critical, you know, and
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely, it's definitely needed. Now, when it comes to like we have obviously the falsely accused, but
Hmm.
we also have to keep in mind victims, real
Yeah.
victims, and whatnot. So, they undergo severe stress and pain and what have you. Now, how do you ensure that your organization remains compassionate and empathetic towards all individuals affected by false accusations, including victims and all the families?
We come from that position of compassion when it starts on the phone. So it's I do about 99% of the phone calls on the helpline.
Right.
We ensure that everybody that calls us has been listened to. We give them the best possible help that we can and connect them with the right people and get them in the support group. I would say, Dipchand, that 99% of the men that call me, when they go through their story,
Right.
they're domestic abuse victims themselves. And a lot of the guys, when I say to them on the phone, do you realise you're a victim of domestic abuse? A lot of men don't realise it, actually. They don't realise it. They just put it down to their ex being a bit of a nutcase or this or that. I said, no, no. I said, what you're describing to me is this type of abuse, is that type of abuse, and so on and so on. And what I want to see is that we as a society quite rightly condemn men who commit domestic abuse. Quite rightly. I
100%.
despise any man who is an abuser. Let me make that clear, despise any of them. But we seem to give women a free pass. It seems to get played down. Oh, well, she's this, she's that, and it's not as bad as what is. No, we've got to treat all domestic abuse victims with compassion, care, whether that's a male victim or a female victim. And we've rightly got to come down hard on male perpetrators and female perpetrators. We've got to treat this seriously. At the moment, it's that the focus is on female victims and male victims are ignored.
Yeah, we here at Voice of Men 360 100% support that statement.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when men are the perpetrators, and believe me, there are those out there who harm women in any way, they should
Mm-hmm.
be held fully accountable for their actions. There's no way I'm going to defend that.
Mm-hmm.
However, as you mentioned, for a number of cases, I think when the violence in domestic abuse is one directional, the female is more of the aggressor in most cases, in more cases than the male.
Mm-hmm.
And the unfortunate thing, and as I mentioned in the beginning, there needs to be more public awareness and education.
Absolutely.
You know, what happens is as soon as you hear the word domestic abuse or domestic violence, it's automatically assumed that the male is the
Yep.
perpetrator. That's something we have to reach out to the public out there and educate them on the real statistics and the real incidences of domestic abuse. And again, going back to your very important point, where the men are guilty, where the men have committed the crime, they need to be held accountable. We
Yep.
fully support that as well. Now, we're winding down towards the end of the show. So, what final message would you like to convey to our listeners about the importance of supporting the falsely accused and promoting fairness in the justice system?
I would say that to anybody listening to this, if you're in England and Wales especially, that support is available now. The days have gone where men who've been falsely accused of domestic abuse will be left to rot.
Right.
We exist now. Falsely Accused Network exists, and it exists for you. I would say to people who haven't been falsely accused, but if they come across a friend or a relative who's been accused of domestic abuse, please keep an open mind about what you hear, because a lot of men have lost family and friends when they've been falsely accused, when they've been innocent, and people have just gone and believed the woman. I say to people, please keep an open mind. If you hear stories of someone that you know or a loved one who's been accused of domestic abuse, keep an open mind. And I think that we will carry on raising awareness of this problem. We will carry on supporting people, raising awareness, campaign videos. And in the justice system, I think I can only talk for England and Wales, but this believe the victim policy has to stop. It has to stop. Of course, any allegations need to be investigated. Of course they do, but impartially. And I am calling for reforms in the legal aid system within the family court, because I think that is what is behind this huge spike in the last 12, 15 years of false allegations in the family court in England and Wales.
Yeah, that's a very critical point, and something we all should strive for, to educate people, to reach out, actually get some of the legislation changed, get people. One of the more important things on this whole issue is to approach the situation with an open mind and use merit only to determine, the outcome of such a situation. So it's critical that we, given that the support system is sadly lacking, that organizations like yours and obviously people with similar interests in the UK and the same across the pond here in North America, take that stance where they look out for each other, and as far as support goes, because it's sadly lacking from the government side of things.
Yeah.
So we have a final question for you, Michael, but before we do get to that, I just want to run through a bit of information about our organization. We would love to, we welcome everyone to our show and our organization. Please support us in whatever way you possibly can, whether you're an individual, a professional, community organization, corporation, government officials, wherever you may fall. We urge and ask you, very beseech you at this point to support us as best you can. Our phone number is 226-289-8784. Email address is info@voiceofmen360.org. And the website is www.voiceofmen360.org. Now, we're all over social media. You can find us. We have, to begin with, a Facebook group page. Please join our group and see our daily activities. We're also on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. We have a YouTube channel, Voice of Men 360. We would love very much for you to support us on our YouTube channel, as well as other areas that we advocate for men and boys as best you can. And invite your friends, please, to join us in this worthy event here. So, Michael, a final question for you is, how can anyone learn more about your organization? And why don't you share some contact information that you think you can get out there to people?
Sure. So our website is www.falselyaccusednetwork.co.uk. On that website is our contact details. We have a phone number on there and email address and a contact form, but also I have a blog as well. So there's lots of information, stories that I write, information for the public, and some great insights into what's going on out there and the injustices that men face. So I'll repeat that. It's www.falselyaccusednetwork.co.uk. If you're based in England and Wales and you have been falsely accused of domestic abuse, support is available. Let us know and we'll get in contact with you, and we can certainly try our best to help you out.
Well, that would be something that I think would be welcomed by most men in who find themselves in that particular situation, and not only the men themselves, their families and communities as well, because considering the experience that a lot of them have had over time is definitely something that's necessary, to say the least. So we've come to the end of our program for today. We want to thank our esteemed guest, Michael Thompson, for his tremendous work that he's done on behalf of the falsely accused. Thank you so much, Michael, we really appreciate the time that you've put in here and the information you've imparted. We'd like to thank the audience who joined us today. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that you've learned quite a bit. Some of you, or most of you probably would not have known some of these points that were raised today. So thank you to the audience out there for joining us today, and to our president who's behind the controls. You don't see him, but he's the one pulling the levers in all directions to make sure this show run as smooth, as seamless as possible. So thank you, Sivam, for doing your part in this process. So again, thanks to everyone out there. Thank you again, Michael, and to all the audience out there. Have yourself a good evening or good morning, good night, wherever you may be. Thank you and goodbye from all of us here at Voice of Men 360.